the stars be with you.
I'm so excited to welcome this week's guest, Cassie PINNER. So thank you so much for being here.
Hello, thank you for having me.
And so Cassie is a local here in San Diego. I know you haven't been here forever, but you have been here for the last couple years, right?
Yeah.
And we were able to meet online through some mutual interests and got together for a little chat. And I thought she would be perfect to bring on this week, especially since we're focusing on Neptune's journey, since we have a Sun-Neptune opposition this week. So Neptune's journey, opening the gate to spiritual understanding. And I didn't even realize how kind of perfect Cassie's story would be, or like part of her stories. We all have our own story. But it felt very perfect. So I'm glad to have you here. So tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started.
Sure. So I am a Reiki practitioner, and I guess a new addition to my title is intuitive healer. And I'm the founder of Manifest Reiki and Herbs.
Nice. And so you moved here to San Diego not too long ago, right? You're originally from the East Coast?
Yeah, I'm originally from New York, and I moved here from Boston because I like to move around just about 2 years ago.
Nice. I always loved Boston. That's like one of the few places in the U.S. I've been to several times. I just always loved it there for some reason.
Yeah, it's nice, but the 5 or 6 months of winter can really change you.
Yeah, its novelty loses itself a bit.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I remember one time I went there for some type of I was in college and I went to go visit a friend, and I had packed a pair of shoes. I packed one pair of shoes, and they happened to have a hole in it, like a crack, and I didn't know it. And it was like January, like the dead of winter. And it was a wet, soggy trip for my feet.
Yeah. Did you buy new shoes over there?
I did. Well, I ended up buying some New Balance because I know New Balance, I think they have like a headquarters or something, or like they had some type of, I think that brand was rather big in the East. I mean, this late 90s, it's all a blur to me now. But I did end up buying those, but I had to suffer like a good solid, 4 days before that opportunity came. So yes, it was, a test of one's endurance. Cold.
Yeah, like every winter there. That's right. You got it. You got the big picture with your shoes.
Yes, and then I was done. I was like, okay, well, experience that. So San Diego has to be much different for you then.
Yeah, it is different. I mean, I do find it's kind of funny because it's opposite. Like I find myself hiding inside when it's super hot. Like everyone hides inside there when it's all winter. So
yeah,
I think I just find that I really don't like any sort of extreme weather. I just want fall, like 365 days.
I hear you. It's funny because San Diego used to be like that, but now that we've got,
that's what everyone says.
Yeah, and all that. Yeah, when I first moved here, it was like I moved here in 2000, and it was a solid 70 every day. Every day.
So heavenly, dreamy, romantic.
Yeah, it was. Oh, the world be a changing.
Yeah.
So speaking of changes with worlds, so we're going to start today's guest talk with a story, because I think that Cassie has some interesting life stories to share in relation to kind of our Neptune flavor of the week. And just being in, this more spiritual vibe that we're obviously resonating at, like we talk about things that are not necessarily tangible to outer reality. And I think that's going to be the theme of this show. So let's start with your story, Cassie, about the Catachism-ic Rejection. That's what I think. So tell us.
Okay, that would be such a crazy book title.
Yeah, right?
All right, so if people don't know what catechism is, it is basically when you go to like Catholic class, well, not Catholic, it's actually Catholic, but I don't know if you would call it class, but once a week you go like every Monday night and you learn about Catholicism and the Bible and stuff for a couple hours every week. And you're doing that, I think, from like second grade, because that's when you make your communion. And then 8th grade is when you get confirmed. I keep going to do this because I don't know, like, you know, who knows what's real.
She's using quotes for our listeners on the podcast.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, in 8th grade, you're supposed to get confirmed, and that's when you're done with catechism, the whole thing, and you're like a real Catholic or something. So in 8th grade, I was in class, and things just weren't making a lot of sense to me. And I raised my hand and asked, you know, how do I really know that there's a God? Kind of looking for like a user manual, like something to make more sense. Like, basically, how do I know something's there if I can't see it? How do I have faith? I really was in an 8th grader's way, you know, trying to understand faith. I can say it so eloquently now, being not in 8th grade anymore. But yeah, so I asked that, and they couldn't answer me, and they got upset that I kept asking. I think they answered me in a way that like didn't satisfy me, and I was like, but that doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, can you please say it another way or something? Which I actually still say to people when I don't understand something. So long story short, I got kicked out of that class. And it's funny because everyone came up to me after, all my classmates, and they were like, I feel the same way. It doesn't make sense. I'm confused, you know? So that was kind of like okay, I'm not a freak or something, you know, there's like something missing here that they're not explaining that we want to understand. And we really do want to believe and have faith. But yeah, so then I had to have a meeting with the Monsignor, which is like the head of the church, the parish. And my mom was there. She had to be present. And he just asked me, so you don't believe in God, is that right? And I said, I guess not, because they couldn't answer my questions. And then he sent me out of the door, and that was kind of it. And that was when my mom has told me since then, that was the first time she kind of realized like who I was ish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that story, Cassie, because, well, first let's, for those of you who have the astrological bent like myself, she is a Virgo rising. So of course you're looking for the practical side of life, reality, you know, you want to understand it at a tangible level. And I think it's interesting too with that story, because both Cassie and I were born at a time when Neptune was in Sagittarius, and Cassie just happened to be born when the South Node was conjunct Neptune as well, which is very interesting to a life story, and especially in Sagittarius being more like you know, the seeker of truth. You know, that seemed ingrained in your story to question those things and not to get an answer, because I think it was just important that you didn't get an answer. Then, well, because there is no answer. It's not an answerable question. So it was a little bit of a catch-22, it seemed like, because you're like, okay, I need you to explain this to me better. But he's like, I can't, so bye. Like, yeah, because he's kind of, you know, following those same those same beliefs. And that's where I think Neptune is so important here, is because Neptune is the principle that we can't really put our finger on, right? Just like you were saying, that faith-based, you know, I want to understand, but I really never will on a tangible level. So what do I do? Yeah. So what did you do after that? Like, I mean, I know that's important to your personal journey to where you are today. So what happened after that? Like the after.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you can guess I became an atheist. And just because if there was no answer, then I couldn't really partake in that, you know? I became an atheist, but I was also like in and out of being agnostic, calling myself agnostic. And then I had little periods of my life, actually I didn't tell you this, where I would like secretly, this is kind of weird, but I would secretly, like, I would tell my family that, wow, I don't know why I'm saying this, but I would tell my family that I was going to my friend's house and I would go to church.
Oh my goodness.
Because I still wanted it, but I don't know. I just couldn't make sense of it. So yeah, I was an atheist. I was agnostic. I was like a wild child, you know? And yeah, then when I graduated high school and I went to college, I majored in psychology, which makes sense with this part of the story too, I feel like, which I didn't realize.
Yeah.
I'm just like obsessed with figuring things out, especially people. So yeah, I got the bachelor's in psychology, and then I went into work in the field with clients for a whopping 4 months because I didn't like the bureaucracy of it. Like the rules didn't make sense to me. I would have done it differently. You know, I always have like something to say about the higher structure. And then, you know, I moved around, I did a lot of different things, but then I did 1 year of an MFA program in poetry because I was like, I always knew that my mission was to help people. Like that was not unclear to me at any point. I always knew that I had something to share. I had something to say. I had like, you know, the teachers when I was little would tell my mom that I would mediate arguments between other students. So there was always like this thing that I didn't know, like the avenue that would take me to be able to help people, but it was always there. So yeah, I thought, oh, let me be a counselor. And then I was like, you know, for more reasons than the bureaucracy, but that was a part of it. And then I did the MFA, and then I quit in the middle because of a million reasons again, but the bureaucratic system. I was like, I don't want to teach poetry to, first of all, I don't know if I believe in the university system anymore.
Yeah, no.
In general, like I really did when I graduated, you know, but then like I think 7 years passed between when I started my MFA and when I graduated. And I graduated in 2007, so it was right before the recession.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was that. I don't know if I believe in the university system, or is it like a scam, or do I only want to help people that have access to this college? No, you know. So then I got really into like, oh, I want to teach poetry in jail. I want to teach poetry in, I'm serious.
Yeah, I believe you. It feels very Pisces Virgo because you're a Pisces sun too. So yeah. It seems that's service oriented, you know, helping the downtrodden.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I don't want to teach these rich kids who can afford this private college or whatever. I was like, I want to go, because this, you know, poetry to me is really transformative. I mean, any art making is really transformative. It's kind of spiritual, I guess. I never thought about it like that, or I never said that, but it's spiritual. So it was the same way that I feel about what I do now. Like I want to bring this to everyone and just figure out how to do that. So, but I didn't wind up doing that because of the bureaucracy of it. And yeah, I quit the program.
And so here we are back again at that same type of like, you know, working within the framework, because I liked when Cassie and I were talking about catechism, because the funny thing is, not having grown up in the church myself, or even as the weekend church warrior, because we were just talking about that, because I was like, did your family, were they really religious? And you were like, no.
Yeah, no, they weren't. I know there's something called like a Sunday Catholic, I think. And my family wasn't even that. I only went to church when I had to do it for catechism, like as part of school.
Yes. And so that's what I found interesting, because I had never even, like, having not been a part of any of that myself, like, I was like, what's catechism? Is that like cataclysm? And she's all, no. And then I look up the definition, and it says a summary of the principles of Christian religion in the form of questions and answers used for the instruction of Christians. Also a series of fixed questions, answers, or precepts used for instruction in other situations. So I found it very interesting that, you know, the fixity of it all, and how, you know, there were only certain questions that could be asked and certain questions that could be answered. And you asked a question that essentially didn't have an answer and required more of that Neptunian, you know, faith, and looking at your own belief system to really figure out what that means for you. And that guy couldn't tell you, because he probably still he was worked in that same, you know, catechism, you know, get him in, get him out, you know, like.
Yeah. And I mean, from the definition, it's like there was no plan to answer a question that was outside of the outline of questions, I guess, you know. But it is also really interesting from the other perspective that questions and answers is in the definition of it. And my whole story like pivots on a question.
Yeah, that didn't get an answer.
Yeah.
And which is funny. And I love how you snuck out to go to church. That makes me smile.
I know. I kind of forgot about that, but I did do that for, I think when I was like around 19.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, sometimes it calls to you. Like my only true experience with the church personally, because I grew up in a family that, like my mom, I believe, went to Catholic school. But by the time I came around, there was none of that going on. And so
that's the same for me. My mom went to Catholic school also.
Really? And so that probably says a lot about, how our parents were raised too, and then kind of how it transcends unto us, however, which way it does. And times change. And so we're a reflection of our own personal time. But I remember when I think it was 7th grade. At that time I was living in Charleston, South Carolina. And I had 2 neighbors. I had a neighbor from New York, actually. It was two little girls, one a year older than me, one a year younger. And they went to church every weekend. And I was kind of jealous. I was like, where you're going? You're getting all dressed up. You're going somewhere. I'm like, take me with you. And so they started to take me with them. And I just liked the ritual of it all and how everyone looked nice. And then I liked the learning aspect of it. So I took, I went into their Bible classes, a few of them. And so I decided, I was like, I'm going to get baptized. I made this like my own decision as, like 11-year-old girl, that I was like, I'm going to get baptized. And so I sit down with the pastor or whoever it was. That's how much I know. Who was in charge of this whole thing. And he's asking me questions like, why do you want this? What do you, and apparently his questions and my answers were not good enough, because he was like, I think you should really consider this, because he could see that my motivation for wanting to do it, wanting to join in and be part of it, was a little different than I think what they were looking for in a follower per se. Like I just wanted to be part of the group, which was,
I think that's so sweet. And I think you should have been baptized.
Yes. Well, I feel like there was a reason I wasn't.
Yeah.
And that's okay. If anything, it was kind of like yourself in that moment where I walked away from that conversation, just questioning it a little bit, like, what was it about me that didn't really necessarily, apply or to, baptism, or what they thought would be, or like what would be, because I think he was alluding to the fact that I needed to be more serious about the whole matter in order to have it done. So yeah, no, it was just interesting. And to think that I on my own whim, I wanted to be a part of this. Like it wasn't, because most people like yourself, like you're saying, you're guided in by the family for whatever reason, where I was like not, and even my mom was like, why are you going to church? What are you doing?
Yeah, but I think that's even more reason why you should have been allowed to, because you can't, like, it wasn't prescribed to you. It was of your own volition. So that really says something too. Yes,
it does. And so here we are on the other, we're kind of meeting in the same place, but on other sides in a way. And I mean, that's okay. I'm totally, I did not need to be baptized to find, to find spirit or find God, or, however that
I just don't like the denying of people wanting to be a part of it.
Yes. Well, exactly. And that speaks against the Neptunian principle, and one that you were telling me earlier that you're all about. And that's that Piscean compassion, right?
Lead with compassion. Yeah, that's the first rule of life, my life. And then the second rule, quotation marks, is speak your truth.
Speak your truth. And so that's kind of where we're leading with the whole truth thing here as far as this story is concerned. And I'm going to segue into some Neptunian, background information, because Neptune, and we're getting a dose of that this week when you're listening to this, because we have a Sun-Neptune opposition. So it's our yearly having a across the pond look to this Neptune, where we're able to get kind of take it in more consciously. And Neptune is just about that. It's like our belief systems that we, encounter through our own perception of life and our imagination, and then, little things we've been taught around the way, because, Mercury really works with that kind of intellectual processing and going back and forth with something in our mind. But a lot of how we perceive things actually lies in Neptune land, because, you know, we all heard the term rose-colored glasses, right? You know, like that idealism in life. And essentially we make decisions based on our beliefs, which are in turn like a filter that we wear on, you know, based on, so we can't really put our finger on that or say something is morally right or morally wrong. I mean, some things are more obviously the case, but it's all leading to our own perception of things and how we look at life. And if we're looking at things more clearly, if you have more of that earth energy and you're down to earth in that reality, or if you're looking at things with that, you know, that more dreamy Neptunian, Piscean vibe. And so I find you perfect, Cassie, because you work in both realms, right?
Yeah, I prefer one over the other, but I am forced to work in both.
Which one do you prefer? You like the Pisces?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's more fun.
It is. It is, because if anything, it takes, well, it's more fun because it takes the levity out of, you know, or is that the word I was looking for? Gravity? I'm looking for some word, but it takes that, you know, like the reality of life away a little bit, which can be at times a little bit much, you know, like they don't call it harsh reality for nothing.
Yeah.
So yes. Okay. So I'm going to break away into a Neptune story. This is the story of Neptune. Just because I found it very interesting about, you know, because they say when a planet is discovered, or at least these outer planets, because the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, are not planets that we can see with our naked eye. And so that's what makes them a little bit different, because all the planets through Saturn, or, you know, the luminaries, which we call planets, we can see those, you know, at different times of the year, depending on the sky's rotation and all that. And so I found the discovery of Neptune very interesting. And I'm reading, or I'm referencing Stephen Forrest's The Book of Neptune. If you have a chance, check that out, because it's pretty fascinating, I have to say. But, you know, I just assumed that, you know, Neptune was discovered in the mid-1800s and blah, 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 and aligned with a lot of things. But I didn't realize how long it actually took for Neptune to be discovered. And it really plays into the actual myth and the archetype that surrounds Neptune energy. And so, okay, so here's how it goes. So actually the first person to ever see Neptune was Galileo, back in 1612, because he had discovered the 4 major moons of Jupiter. And so he was tracking the large moons of Jupiter. And at that time, he actually had the first observation of Neptune based on Neptune's orbit at that particular time. It was lining up with the moons of Jupiter and the moons there. I think there was some type of conjunction going on. And he, you know, the bright man he was, he thought it was a fixed star. And so he just kind of like, you know, put it out there like, I don't need to pay attention to that. And then the next time he mapped it out a few days later, or like a week or so later, the fixed star had moved, which would have told him that it's not a fixed star, right? But because of the beliefs of his time, in his time, they didn't think there were any planets past Saturn. If I can't see it, it doesn't exist, right? And so even though he had the evidence, he discovered it, he would have saw it move if he believed it. His belief system was not there to even entertain the idea that there was a planet beyond the scope of the reality that people knew. So I found that very interesting, because that was 234 years before Neptune was actually discovered. So there's like a gray area there. And so then in 1821, there was a French astronomer named Alex Bouvard who was watching the orbit of Uranus, because at that point Uranus had been discovered about 40 years prior. And he was noticing that there was something unusual about Uranus's orbit, which really speaks to Uranus. You know, Uranian ideas are usually unusual and different. And he knew that it was another planet's gravitational pull that was kind of, or not another planet, but just some type of moving body was interacting with it to create that, you know, weird orbit. But he didn't know what it was, you know? And so there, again, we have something that's invisible that is interacting with us, but he couldn't put his finger on it. He couldn't prove it. He knew it, but he still couldn't prove it to reality. And so then in 1843, we're now getting closer to someone finally, you know, getting there. There was a British astronomer, John Couch Adams, I think you say Couch, could be Cooch, who knows. He was also doing the same thing. He was looking at the errors of Uranus's orbit. And he was like, something's got to be there. And so he's honing in on what is that? And so he reached out to the royal astronomer, Sir George Airy, and told him, you know, what was going on. And so Airy was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And was like, okay, well, send me more information. Send me, you know, the details. And then this guy Adams just happened to forget to send the letter. Just didn't, spaced on it, didn't send it out, which is another very Neptunian type of thing where, you know, you never get to it, just kind of spaces.
Like maybe he sent it in his dreams.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the thing too, is like in those times of days, we didn't have like a receipt from the post office or anything like that. It was more like, did I send it? I think I sent it. I can't remember. Maybe I did. You know, and that's kind of a thing with Neptune too. You know, it's fuzzy. You don't quite know. And so here we have, once again, this is the third attempt, and Neptune is still elusive, right? And so in 1846, 45, 46, then we had another Frenchman, Urbain Le Verrier, who was doing the same work as Adams, and he was coming to the same conclusions based on Uranus's orbit, and he's really honing in on it. And so he sent word to the Berlin Observatory to take a look. And at that point, Airy in Britain was like, oh, wait, 2 people are onto this? I need to look. And so everyone was on it at the same time. And later that day, the same day that they actually got Le Verrier's letter in the mail in Berlin on September 23rd, 1846, Neptune was discovered that night, in that evening. And so it took so much to get there, and so much illusion and thinking it's real, but it's not actually real yet. And even then after that, they disputed who actually discovered it, because that was unclear too. So the bottom line with Neptune's story is that, you know, it's fuzzy. It eluded us. It was there, but we couldn't prove it. You know, it's like all these things that have to do with Neptune. So I just found that was long, but I found that fascinating.
No, I love that. It speaks a lot to what I do now, and so many ideas too, like Galileo, when you were talking about him seeing it and kind of intuitively knowing something, or not seeing it, but or whatever, you know, intuitively knowing something was going on, but just not having the capacity to go beyond what could have been real to him.
Yeah.
That to me triggers thinking about like positive thinking, you know, and how, I mean, a million things you already said too, like our perception, right? We're all maneuvering around in the world with our own filter that we couldn't ever explain to someone else that would like fully, because it's our filter and we're experiencing everything so differently from each other. I mean, we're all connected and we're all one too, but just for the sake of what we're talking about, yeah, it's just really fascinating to me. Yeah. And it applies to like everything spiritual, right? I mean, oh, no, I like that move. I like that hand move.
That was my air traffic controller move. I was like, yes, Cassie, continue on this path. You're on to something.
Well, you were going to talk about how in our society that was the time of the spiritualist movement, right?
Well, yes, because if we look at, yes, I guess I was leading to that point, because, you know, if we looked at Uranus, when Uranus was discovered, that's the time we had the French and the American Revolution and revolutionary qualities, and, you know, people were rebelling. And Pluto was discovered. That's when, you know, the Freudian movement started, of the unconscious and going beneath and, you know, diving deep within those type of darker realms. And so for Neptune, even though it took a while for it to get discovered, which is so perfect, it also coincided with some interesting things actually in the 1840s. First of all, I want to say that when it was discovered, for you astrologers out there, it was when Neptune was in Aquarius and it was conjunct Saturn. And I found that so perfect, because Saturn is the planet that brings us back down to reality, right? It's interesting because Saturn brings us to that reality point, but at the same time, it's kind of that Neptunian question of what is reality. And if what we take seriously and deem as real, that Saturn principle, is not always necessarily the case. But I thought it was so perfect on like kind of a, just the two meeting, that Neptune had been elusive for so long, and then finally Saturn kind of caught it in its reality net and was like, okay, come on, you're coming down to earth. We're bringing you to the people. And so I liked that little nugget of interest. But yes, so some little things that happened that year before I get into the spiritualist movement, because that was very much the big thing to me,
The
the big connector.
Yeah.
but even like little things, like the same year Neptune was discovered, around that time, that was the first time a patient was given ether as an anesthetic surgery, or for anesthetic surgery. So if you think about being able to be put under and not to feel things and kind of taken out of reality so you can have that, that actually changed the scope of medicine in, anesthetic regards. So
Can I just tell you something?
Yes, please.
I know we're going to talk about this later, the tea that I make. But on the label, I chose to write, brew, enjoy, and float into the ether.
Ah!
That's what is on the label.
I love it. Oh, Neptune is that. Oh, I love it. It's perfect. And so people were floating into the ether. They're probably thankful.
That's what I want. Yeah.
And so that was very interesting at that time. Also, that time was when the gold rush started, and people had the dream of getting rich and finding this. They didn't know where it was going to be. They had to go on the faith of going out west and like figuring, and doing the work, that the work to try to find this, but it wasn't a guarantee, right? It was essentially a dream.
Yeah. Like life became more fantastical and like quest related, right?
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it as well. Or even something this is kind of interesting. Poor sanitation actually created a cholera epidemic, which killed thousands of people, which is unfortunate. But a lot of times Neptune is associated with those kind of deaths, especially death by disease, and how things spread, right? There was kind of no stopping it. And I found it funny. There was like a little anecdote to that story where some people believe it's God's punishment.
Oh, God.
I know. So, God, as you say.
Oh, God.
Oh, God. But it really falls in line to what we're saying again, too. The punishment or the belief system that leads to think something happens for a certain reason. Or like,
I don't like punishment.
Yeah. And none of us do. None of us want to be punished. But it's so interesting how many people align with that. And that's actually really funny you say that, Cassie, because so basically around this time, right after Neptune was discovered in the 1840s, it actually moved into Pisces not too long after. And that's where it is right now. And the last time it was there was in the 1800s. So, we haven't had this again. And right when Neptune moved into Pisces, there was a pastor or a priest that wrote a book, I think it's called What If There Isn't a Hell, or something along those lines. And I wish I knew the title right now, but he was basically saying that he was questioning that exact thing you said. I don't want punishment. I don't want to be punished. And so finally, this spiritual man, this man of God, was coming out to say that, hey, I don't think hell is real. And I think we may have been like kind of duped into this guilt, which, is very a Piscean type of thing. And
oh my God. When did that book come out?
It came out when Neptune moved into Pisces. So it must have been about 2011-ish.
Okay.
I'll try to find it in my setup here, but I think it's called, oh gosh, of course I can't.
Well, you can write it out. You can like put it in the notes or something.
There we go. I'll throw it in my blog article, because I found that rather fascinating. But okay, so full circle back around to the spiritualist movement, what I was trying to get to this whole time. And that started in the 1840s, and especially with the Fox sisters, who kind of got it started, where essentially spiritualist movement, at least in that time, had to do with a medium being in connection with the spiritual realm, to where they could talk to the dead and go to that other side type of thing, which Cassie will then share her story here in a little bit. But that actually took over the world. It started I think it started in the US, it moved to Britain, it affected people on the lower classes, it was brought to the royal courts. Like this, people took spiritualism, seriously. And there was a lot of fraud going on at that time. I'm sure there was a lot of people that were doing it and they were like legit, and then there were other people that were taking people's faith on this and just being deceived. And so I found that very interesting. And we might be back there again, because I know there's been a spiritual movement in the last handful of years where, I see it all the time with astrologers. I was just reading a feed online earlier today about like, there's so many people claiming to be this. How do we, make a system that deciphers like who's legit and, all this stuff. And so we're back again to the same type of spiritualist principle where we're trying to figure out who's the fraud, who's the real deal. And I think that has a lot to do with Neptune and Pisces. But I digress.
Wow. Wait, I have a question. Claiming to be what? Psychic or medium or person?
Claiming to be, well, because, there's a lot that goes into astrology or tarot, but a lot in astrology, because it can be a very technical profession. And so because it's always been kind of this, kind of spiritual under the radar, it's never been accredited by science or anything like that. It lives underground in this underbelly, but at the same time, it's so many people are gravitating towards it now that they're looking for that kind of Saturnian rule-based, system to come in and be able to be like, okay, well, who is accredited, who, like much like degrees are, and so I just found that interesting because everybody was like, how do we fix this? And in my mind, I'm just thinking Neptune and Pisces, here we are.
Yeah, that's so interesting for a couple of reasons. Well, I have a couple ideas. Like for the first time ever, I saw an astrologer post on Instagram the other day, something about like, yeah, do you think astrology is fake? Like, you don't know what you're looking at. Like, have an astrologer read your chart, And that was the first time that I ever thought, wow, kind of what you're saying, like people are now speaking up or yearning for it being kind of like, an accredited thing. Or I don't know if she wrote that because, like you're saying, it's coming back to the center of our society, like it was last time Pisces was in Neptune. Is that right?
Neptune and Pisces.
Neptune and Pisces.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting. And then also it's really interesting that people want, this is a side note and let me not take us off course, so just put me back. But it's interesting that like an accreditation is important, right? As our like university system is falling apart.
Yes. And yeah.
Like, why would that be the thing that we went to like to make it accredited?
Oh, I love it.
Maybe we should like instead believe like turn back to intuition and nature instead of a piece of paper that says, yes, I'm an astrologer or I'm a this,
Yeah, I agree with your 2 cents. And it's kind of a catch-22 because if you think about it, there are a lot of astrologers out there that have been doing this for a long time. And there are organizations that help you get you can get accredited through certain astrological organizations and programs and stuff along those lines. But it raises the question, it raises the question of how, valid someone's skill is too, how much you put into it. And it's so if you put a lot of time and energy into something and you've based a lot of understanding, spent several years on it, and then you see someone come along, and like I think this is a lot of what a lot of astrologers or maybe even tarot people might be dealing with, and then you see someone come along who's just got in there, is kind of sharing very base stuff, but has like a following like 20 million times larger than yours. And you're like, but the wrong information is getting out. And I have to say, I have totally felt that way from time to time. But at the same time, I think that's part of the Neptune and Pisces journey, is because essentially people are looking to spiritually connect now by the droves. Like everybody's like, you've seen it, there's a spiritual uprising right now and we are part of it. And that's okay.
That's great.
Yeah, I think that is great. It's wonderful. And I think at the same time, there comes that Pisces element, and something that we really can't get away from is the fact that it isn't clear cut. There could be deception there. People might, be fraudulent and not give you the type of quality for the same money you could get elsewhere had you done your research on the practitioner. But at the same time, I also believe in the law of attraction, and like people who come to you, and we all have something to share, and what that looks like is going to be different for everyone. So,
and also karma, like if you just got a book on tarot yesterday and you're like, I'm a tarot reader, here's my website, here's my this, here's my that, it's not going to work out for you anyway, because you're not putting in like the law of attraction. Yes, the people will come that you are attracting, but also the life that you're making will come to you, right? So if you're like, I'm this thing, the day after you learn it, it's going to fall apart, or you really mean it and you're really going for it, and like you're really going to become it.
Yeah, and it's just going to take time to grow, and you'll pick up along the way, type of thing. And so, but these are the questions that we have in typical Neptunian fashion. We don't have an answer for them, right? It's all based on our belief, or what we think is the right way to proceed. And so
I mean, maybe it's my Virgo rising talking, but when you mentioned do your research, like that is what I would lean on to know if I want to buy a session with anyone.
Yes. And so then, and that's a good way of looking at it too, because it takes all the pressure off, like the practitioner being something of specific, a certain level, because at the end of the day, whoever you're giving money to, whoever you are gravitating towards to look for healing or understanding or enlightenment, however that looks for you, it's still your choice to make, right? Yeah,
I mean, my friend says this quote all the time about how we can't learn as much from someone who's like 20 steps ahead of us, but we can learn more from someone who's like 2 or 3 steps ahead of us, because we're speaking like a similar language in it.
Yes, and that is a valid point.
Not to say that someone couldn't go to an astrologer that's been doing it for 20 years and not understand. I'm veering off all different ways, but I just think that I lean more towards like, I'm just really excited that our society is going toward spirituality, like you said, in droves. And it's less important to me, the other part of it, like if people are doing it in a certain way. And I guess that shows in my chart too, right? I know you're about to say that.
I think that says a lot to having Saturn in Capricorn right now and having Pluto in Capricorn, because Capricorn deals with systems and organizations and things along those lines. And Saturn is back to that reality principle that Saturn was conjunct Neptune when Neptune was discovered officially. And so that Saturn in Capricorn is just like, no, there has to be rules behind this. There has to be some organization to it. It can't be a free for all the people that want to be this or that and advertise, And so that's where it's basically, that's my opinion of why these two things are coming together at this particular time. And there is no answer, and I'm ping-ponging just as much as you are.
Sure, yeah.
And I think that's the nature.
Yeah, I think thinking back to that, when the astrologer, it's actually Jessica Lanyadoo, if you know who that is. She is the astrologer for the Hood Witch. I think it's because of all the memes, like, how many meme astrology accounts are coming up, and people are like really identifying with their sun sign only, like you and I talked about. So I think it's because of like the internet and the oversimplification of everything, and like our society of wanting things fast and like devourable very quick, like as much as we can. And that's probably really sad to see for someone who is working in and studying and creating a service in their life around a beautiful esoteric tradition.
Yeah. and then having it, yeah. And so, but that's the thing is we have to, you're always pushing through what is in the now, and so it's just where we are right now, and we'll have to tackle this. But at the end of the day, like we were saying, like people are just coming to spirituality now, and that is the time of life that we are in for these 15 years, until Neptune moves into Aries, which is 2026, I believe, is when it enters there. So we got some time to go. And then that landscape will totally change as well. So this is just where we are right now, and we'll figure it out. Maybe not really Neptune to figure it out. Like that's the whole idea.
I was gonna say, are we going to? I don't know.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't think so. We'll do our best. We will do our best to try. So figuring it out, like let's go back to our, our aftermath of our cataclysmic rejection, our dear cataclysmic rejection. And then that, all that, like you're saying, your distrust of the bureaucratic systems that came after it, which definitely ties into that. Well, I found that interesting because you have a South Node in Capricorn, so you're moving away from those systems anyway. So it makes sense that would kind of repel you, and you kind of want to go in more of a compassionate, nurturing, like the bigger, picture world vision here, rather than working within this framework that seems so outdated and like. And so I think that speaks to that South Node and Neptune conjunction you have. And for anybody listening, if you want to see, do I have that conjunction? The South Node meeting Neptune does not happen every day. It happened in 1949, in 1966, 1983, 2000, and then 2016. So, you guys are special folk that come out at that time to kind of, like pursue these types of questions and understanding. So to me, that makes sense.
That's why all my friends are born in 1949 and 1966. Now I understand.
Yes. I love it. So, so let's move on to our next leg of our journey. Cause you found Reiki, right?
Yeah. So I think where we left off was when I stopped, when I quit the MFA program. And then, I was working little jobs and things that didn't matter. But always, like I think I already said, I've always known that I somehow had to help. Like I was a healer. I had to make people understand each other more or calm down or just all different things. I don't know when it came, like my distrust of the medical world, the Western medical world, but I've had it for a long time. And I just have never been a person to say, like, my doctor said I should do this. I always say, like, why? What made them say that? Like I want to make sense of that, which goes with the whole rest of my story. But yeah, I think actually there was something that happened. I was going to a doctor and I can't remember, like an x-ray or something, but there was something where they had to administer a pregnancy test along with it. And I was like, no. And this was in when I was in the MFA program, because it was at the school doctor. And I said, oh, I don't need that. My partner's a woman. And they were like, well, it's part of like, you have to get it because in order to get this other thing, you have to get this. It's protocol. And I was like, my partner is a woman. Like I'm not pregnant. So for you to take away my agency of like now I'm getting like loud. For you to take away my agency of, do I know how I'm living my life? And then discrediting like the LGBTQ community, whatever. It's a million things deep. I think that's for another time. But yeah, I was really distrustful of the medical system. Like, I'm sure most people are by now. So I wanted to take care of myself in a more Eastern way. And I'm only saying this in retrospect, right? Like I didn't know. I was just like with a blindfold, like fumbling around for what felt right. And I found acupuncture. And then I found Reiki right after that. I didn't know what it was, but I saw that it was originated in Japan and had to do with the energy, like your energy body and the body that you couldn't see that you have around you. And I was like, I think that's what I need to work on. The body that I can't see around me, you know, my aura, your auric field goes out 5 feet in front of you, on the side of you, above you and below you. And I was like, maybe that's where my issues are. Like, I'm going to look there. Right. So I went to this community acupuncture session, and it was just, it's really hard to talk about. And I've tried to write like an eloquent bio for my website about it, but it's just really hard experiencing your energetic body for the first time consciously, right? Like we've all walked into a room and thought, it does not feel good in here, or wow, I feel lighter walking in here, or all these different things. But you know, going to a Reiki session, you're doing that on purpose. So it feels kind of more intense, I guess. You're like curating that for that to happen. So yeah, it was 2 practitioners working on me, and they hovered over my heart chakra, and I just felt like all the energy in my body rising to my skin, and like something was happening and I couldn't put words to it. And tears were like pooling in my eyes. And, you know, the session was over and they were like, how are you feeling? And I remember saying, I don't know, but like my eyes were really closed, like happy. It was kind of like the same as like laughing gas, you know? Not really, but I've had a similar experience with laughing gas where the dentist was like, how are you feeling? And I'm like, I don't know, you know? So they were just like, take your time, you know, go have water in the lobby or whatever. So I did that, and I went home and I was like, whew, that was a really fascinating, life-changing experience. I don't really know what happened, but I felt something. I felt like I had only like skimmed the surface of that kind of feeling ever before, like with the examples of like walking into a room or, you know, different energies and feelings without curating it and doing it on purpose. And my life was just changed. And then, yeah, like I said, I've been looking for how to be the helper that was deep inside of me, like when I was born into this lifetime, and something clicked, and that was it. No more searching, no more bachelor in psychology. I mean, you know, sometimes it's really cute and sweet. People will be like, oh, so you wound up doing what you wanted to do anyway, you know, like that I wanted to counsel people. And with my Reiki sessions, you know, in the beginning of it, we sit and talk. I'm like, what's going on with you? You know, like, let's let everything go. And then after we reconvene and we talk about what we found. So it is like a form of counseling, but not within the system.
Well, you know, I think that's very interesting that you say that. And it's actually kind of perfect for you to sit down and have kind of like those psychoanalytical roots come out first, because I think by releasing some of those or bringing it up to the, at least like that kind of mental surface level before you do the healing, is very potent, because when you're having a Reiki session, if for those of you who have not had one before, you know, you're there, you're in stillness. Someone was working on your energetic body. And that can take anywhere from, you know, 10 minutes to an hour, depending on like, you know, what level you're getting there. And to have some type of food for thought to have kind of release energetically with, you know, from you beforehand, I think is very valuable. And actually speaks to the whole conversation that I was reading online that I spoke of earlier with the astrologers in the Neptune principle, was saying that the only way to get kind of like more accredited in our mainstream bureaucratic society is to then go do things like get a BA or a master's in psychology, and then work the astrology in with the psychology.
Oh my God, really?
Yes.
I'm doing it.
And you're doing that, but on the Reiki level.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're still working within that system, and you have that accreditation to do so. And you get to kind of formulate a unique approach to your own practice. So if anything, you know, no steps are wasted, right? It all.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I'm not sure, I mean, for that session that I already talked about, there was no talking in the beginning. It was just like, get on the table, you know, and then
get on the table.
Get on the table. No, it was like, you know, welcome.
Yes,
whatever. But yeah, there's not a lot of, wasn't a lot of talking. And then I've gotten some other sessions where there is sometimes there isn't, you know, but, and of course, if my client doesn't feel like talking, or they're like, the relationship between me and my clients gets really intimate, you know, as I'm sure a person could guess. So if they come in and they're, you know, they've just been crying or whatever, and they're like, can we just do the table? Can we just do the Reiki today? I'm like, yes, you know. So it's more like, I usually do the talking because I like to set the tone, like how you were saying. You know, I don't want you laying on the table the whole time and thinking about, like, I want you to be able to let go.
Yeah.
So the work can happen, channel through me and get to you. So I don't want you to, I think the talking really helps people release.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times.
We're right back to Neptune, because Neptune is about surrendering and letting go and being able to release, and why it's associated with things such as loss, because we, you know, it's a release from our life, and then we have to surrender something to it. So that's interesting as well.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Because people, I mean, my whole life, people always tell me, like, I don't know why I just told you all of that. You know, I can tell you things that I don't tell other people, or, wow, I've never said that out loud, you know, that kind of stuff. And now that happens in my practice with my clients, but also a lot of crying where people are like, you know, they feel a ton of release. Like, it feels like, you know, you're out operating in the daily world. You have to be polite. Maybe you like don't want to tell your partner how you really feel, or all different things. And then you come here and you can just crack open. That's what I call, like, crack wide open. And then I'm going to get in to your energetic body on the table, and you just let everything go.
Let it go. I love it. I love it. Yeah. And so I know we are running a little long here, but I want to get to your story about Granny, or
yes.
Nanny, right?
Nanny. Yeah. Should I just jump in?
Jump in.
Okay. I think we're there. Yeah.
We're there. This is next level. This is the next leg.
So you know, I'm not without my problems. I mean, every healer, every person, every human trying to live a conscious life gets more and more aware of all of their issues that are, you know, embedded into their DNA and all this kind of stuff. So I talked to my Reiki master, and I was telling her all the things I was worrying about. Like, you know, it is my baseline to worry. And I think it's both from nature and nurture. So it's hard. Yeah. And she was like, okay, what I want you to do is meditate every day for 30 minutes. You know, it has to be as important to you as drinking water or eating food. Like, you can't go without it. And I started doing that, and it changed my life in a million ways that don't have to do with what we're talking about. But also, last month, I was meditating, and I set off the smoke alarm. So I had to get up and, like, you know, wave a towel or the door in front of it to make it stop. And then I came back to the altar and put the headphones back in. And my nanny, which is Irish for grandma, was there. And she said, I'm here with you. Like, it wasn't like a curtain blew and I was like, oh, I think that's my nanny. Or, you know, it wasn't anything that was not definite.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting because, like, it was definite, but it was someone talking to me from the other realm. So I don't know. Yeah. So you're like, I don't know either.
No, it's like the thing. It's like that Neptune thing we're talking about. We can't really define it, but it speaks so clearly to the definition we know.
Yes. So yeah, I had a really long conversation with her because, actually, also, side note really quickly, before this happened, my life was all of a sudden populated with intuitives. And I, you know, being on the path that I'm on, I'm very conscious of everything, and being a Virgo rising, right?
Yes.
And I was like, I was like, wow, like, everyone around me all of a sudden is like an intuitive. Am I an intuitive? You know, is that the message that you're telling me? Like,
yeah.
So yeah, then this happened. So I sat down and she said, I'm here with you. And an intuitive before that told me, because I already have, before this, got messages in my sessions. So, like, I'll see an image of a boat. And then in the recap after your Reiki session, I'll say, you know, I'm not sure what this means, but I saw a boat. And then the person will cry and be like, that's my grandpa, you know? And I'm like, okay. So I asked an intuitive, you know, how come I only get one little picture and I can't really tell the story? And they said, just ask more questions. And you'll keep getting answers, which is another theme of this conversation.
Yes, right.
So yeah, I just kept asking my nanny questions, and I asked her a lot about God. And I thought that was because she was really religious. You know, that was my mom's mom. So that was the reason my mom went to Catholic school and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it was because of my path. I guess it was both, you know, that I hadn't reflected on getting kicked out of catechism in 8th grade and like putting it all together until we really sussed it out more. But yeah, I asked her all about God, and she said, I said, "Is there a God?" And she said, "You are God." And I said, "Okay, but is God, you know, a white guy with a beard? Because that doesn't seem real." And she said, "No, God is everything. Like, God is nature. God is you. God is every person, you know." It was really overwhelming. And I usually cry during meditation anyway, really.
Yes.
But this one, I was just like sobbing, like full chest, like,
because it's almost like you got an answer in that moment. It wasn't a definitive one because it's not an answer. The answer is everything, right?
yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I got an answer, but also like I hadn't seen my nanny in 18 years.
Yes.
And she was like back, and I didn't know she was coming back. And yeah, I didn't know that I had this gift, or like, I'm not even sure if we all have this gift, but it just never, I had never had this experience before. So it was just like, it was really shocking. And yeah, the conversation wasn't like about nothing. It was very deep.
Well, I find it very perfect too, if we come back to your Neptune position in the South Node there. But most importantly, how Neptune in Cassie's chart is exactly to the degree conjunct her IC, which is the opposite point of the midheaven. The IC can represent things as the family, the foundational upbringing, our ancestry. And so here you're having this Neptune experience that answers these, you know, Sagittarius question answer, you know, searching for the truth. And it comes in through your ancestry, through your ancestor. It wasn't like a famous person that came to you, or like, right. It was Nanny, you know, she had, you know, her spirit had the answer for you, or at least a direction to go in to help comfort you and understand yourself better, because that 4th house IC principle is also the very root of our own emotional and, you know, kind of psychological foundation as well, and the conditioning that comes with our family. And so to me, that's so poetic, and it seems beautiful.
It's so poetic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she went on to say, I think I asked her if she was proud of me, and she said yes. And she said, your Reiki practice is God, you know?
Yeah.
And I wrote the whole thing down, so I'm not misrecalling it. Like, I was like, you know, sobbing, communicating with her and writing it all down because I knew how special it was. And she told me the last thing she said before I let her go back up, or before we stopped, was that she advised me to not be denying or afraid of God. So, and that is just really like, that is the God I want, right? You know, that's the one that I wanted. That must have been what I wanted the Monsignor in 8th grade to answer me, you know?
Yeah.
Like, God is love. God is intimacy. You know, God is tears. Like that, it's our connection and our quest. And it's not, I mean, that is something hard to answer, right? Because that's like a non-answer answer.
Yeah.
But
that's where we are today.
but it's more true to me than God is this guy.
Yeah.
You know? Because that was something too, like, I've been like super staunch feminist since I was like 5. I was always like, why are you doing that? I want to do that. Like really intense. I don't know. Maybe it's the past life coming through, but, that was always something that weirded me out too. I was like, God's a guy, so like he doesn't really get me then, but he's my guy, you know, like that kind of thing. I don't know. I spend a lot of time thinking about things. I don't know.
That's funny. Well, okay, so to wrap it all up here, we're coming full circle, right? Because what did you tell me the other day?
Yeah, I said that now, like, you know, I'm confused about, like, am I supposed to go back to church, or like, but I don't want to be rejected, and I don't want it to be this thing about these things that I don't believe. And So I started researching spiritualist churches in San Diego.
Yes.
Yeah.
So here we are at the Spiritualist Church, which was I wanted to tell you that I had a friend that was leading a spiritual church, and it turns out right after we talked, she actually reached out to me the next day, so that was random.
Oh my God, that was not random.
I know. I say that.
Yeah.
I say that with, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but yeah, Sherry O'Hara, and she is putting together a place called the Spirit. I think it's called the Spirit Center, and it's going to be in Hillcrest. I think it's coming together as we speak right now. And so, how perfect!
I'm about to cry.
Yeah. Well, I told her that I had spoken to you, and so we're all linking it up here because basically, at the end of the day, if we're going to wrap this all up, is we all want to connect with something higher than ourselves, and a lot of times, actually all the time, we can't quite see what that is, and we need outlets to do that because that is part of human existence from the very beginning, and why we even look at the stars to find answers to begin with, if we liken it to astrology. So I loved all your stories, Cassie. I love putting it together with the Neptune and how Neptune is so important in your chart, and it just seemed perfect for this week. So now I'm going to give the platform over to you, since we're running a little long here, because I want people to learn about a retreat that Cassie's doing, and then I know you wanted to mention your tea real quick, and so just tell us, where people can find you, what you got going on, and all that.
Yeah, so my website is manifestreikiherbs.com, and then my Instagram is at manifestreikiherbs. And then some things I have going on. Yeah, I mean, I'm a Reiki practitioner, and that's been said already. And some other new things that I have going on. This is coming out on the next Wednesday.
On September 3rd is when it comes out.
Okay. I'm having a retreat that starts on September 7th. So it might be a tight squeeze. But right now, this is August 29th, I think, today. And we have 2 tickets left as of now. The retreat is called You Are the Oracle, and it's basically an energy healing retreat. We're going to give Reiki sessions. We're going to have a fire ritual to release, of course. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have a new moon manifestation ritual. And it's going to be, we have a vegan chef that's doing the whole thing. It's in Palm Desert. And we're also going to the Salton Sea to do a land healing ceremony. I have a co-creator, Rachel Lorraine. She is an interior designer who does feng shui and energy clearing and stuff. So we came together and created like the itinerary for it to kind of serve as best we can. Yeah, nice. So that is on the 7th. And then if you go to my Instagram or my website, there's links to buy a ticket from the Eventbrite.
And I will have all those links on my blog page and stuff as well, too, so that people can get to it that way, too, in case you can't get it down or whatever.
Yeah.
It's out there.
And then I'm releasing a product line that might be in like a couple months, but I'm not sure just yet. It's a lot of details to work out. But one of the things I'm releasing is called a love tea. And I made this tea because my friend asked me to make a tea for her friend who was getting married the next day. She was going to have her over and like draw a bath for her. And she just wanted me to create something for her to really kind of relax and open into and like make sure her nerves were calm. And, it was just like the perfect moment. So I created a tea intuitively for that moment, and it's super delicious. And then I have a rose body oil, and there will be more and more and more from me, but I'm developing a lot of things right now.
Yeah. Well, that seems very Virgo Pisces. I love it. It's
Thank you.
Perfect. Yes. And so, yes, I'll have all those links so that you can go check out Cassie, her offerings, the retreat, which I love the name You Are the Oracle, because it really comes back to what Nanny was saying,
Yeah. Yeah. And Neptune, right?
Nanny and Neptune.
Yeah.
So it's kind of perfect. Neptunian Nanny.
I know, that's so cute.
I love Nanny. Tell Nanny I said hi next time.
I will. I don't know when it'll be, but I'll let her know.
Who knows? But
she's probably here. Right now, she's
exactly.
like, whenever I think of her, she's here. So
yes, she's
Nanny. Say hello.
She's basically laughing at us right now. Silly girls. Oh my God, I love it. So thank you so much for sharing, Cassie.
Thank you so much for having me. This is really fun.
All right, so where can people find me? Well, you can find me at energeticprinciples.com, and you can also find me on Instagram and Facebook at Energetic Principles, where I do daily astro alerts and other updates that are astrological and whim related sometimes. And I do consultations. I focus on something called Tarot Meets Astro, where I I look at the astrology of your chart and the progressions and the transits in the moment, combine it with some tarot, and then we just get in there and talk things out and see what the stars have to say in the process. So if you're interested in that, I'm able to be booked here in San Diego or via Zoom for consultations around the world. Also, you probably heard about me talking about my Patreon page and my tarot subscription there and the moon horoscopes and things along those lines. So if you want to check that out or even show support for the podcast by making, a little donation, I will gladly take it because it keeps it up and running, basically. And you can do that at patreon.com/energetic principles. And of course, if you like what you hear today, share with a friend, spread the good word. Neptune's trying to seep out there into the consciousness. So feel free to share. And if you like what you heard and want to kind of, get me a little more visible on iTunes, I would gladly accept a good review. So I think I've said my whole spiel, and so I will say goodbye to Cassie once again. Thank you so much for joining me.
Bye. Thank you.
All right, everyone, and thank you for joining me as well. And until next time, may the stars be with you.